Welcome to the WRAL Daily Download. I'm Luis Fernandez. It's Election Day in parts of North Carolina. There are some city council races, mayoral contests, and other municipal elections. WRAL State government reporter Will Doran joins us now with everything you need to know. Will, thank you so much for being here.
Nice to talk to you.
So let's look at this as a local election primer, right? First off, who is holding elections on Tuesday?
There's lots of cities and counties around the state do have elections. Probably the biggest ones, especially in our kind of central part of the state, are Durham and Fayetteville and Rocky Mount. Not the only ones, and people can go online to the State Board of Elections website and you can actually find this interactive map that they have that you can find your county and it'll tell you which cities are having elections. But Durham, Fayetteville, Rocky Mount, if you're in one of those areas, you do have elections today.
Hopefully you know. But if you don't, we're here to inform you on all the little minutia of it. So are we looking at primaries here? Are these going to be final decisions? Is it a mixed bag?
It is a mixed bag. So in Rocky Mount, this is it for Rocky Mount. And it's not every single seat on the city council there, but it's about half of them are for election. This will be the final say. But in Durham and in Fayetteville, you have primaries. And so this isn't quite it yet, but you have huge fields of candidates running for some of these seats, for mayor, city council, things like that. And then in whoever the top two finishers are then going to move on to November for the final election in those two cities.
So if you didn't vote early with some of these different elections, what are the main things you need to know to execute your civic duty? Like the things like, when do the polls close? When do they open? Do you need an ID? Let's get the bullet points.
Well, polls open or opened at 6:30 in the morning, depending on when you're listening to this, and they are open until 7:30 tonight. And so, people who were, kind of getting off work late, trying to make it at the very last second, as long as you're kind of in the building signing in by 7:30, or if there's a long line, if you're in line by 7:30, you will still be allowed to vote. So, you can, go a little bit later like that. You'll need to bring voter ID. That is the law in North Carolina now. The 2024 elections were really the first kind of big voter ID experience that we had, and it seems to have gone pretty smoothly for most people. There were obviously a few cases of people getting turned away, but for the most part, people, were able to show their driver's license or, some other acceptable form of ID, things like that. If you have a mail-in ballot, you need to deliver your mail-in ballot by hand. And you got to bring that to the county elections office. You can't bring that to your polling place, to the elections office. But if you are going to vote in person, you got to go to your polling place, which you can find either if you have, like a physical voter card, it should have that on there, or you can just go online, Google North Carolina voter registration, put in your information to look up your registration, and that will tell you where you need to go vote.
That's what I always do when I need to look it up. It's a lot of the information is so easily accessible online now. You can also see like sample ballots and things like that, so you can do your homework ahead of time.
That's very helpful. The sample ballots are on that exact same page where it has your precinct at, so kind of a one-stop shop for you there.
Let's go ahead and take a quick break there. When we come back, which races we're following closely? Welcome back to the WRAL Daily Download. We're talking with WRAL State Government reporter Will Doran about Tuesday's local elections. So, Will, which one of these local races is the most high profile? Which one are you following closely?
Well, the Durham mayor's race is very high profile. I mean, Durham is the fourth biggest city in the state, and there are 5 people running for mayor. Obviously, Leonardo Williams, the incumbent, is seeking re-election, but he's got a lot of people running against him, including Anjani Bell, who's the daughter of Bill Bell, who's the former Durham mayor. Other candidates as well, but it's going to be a really interesting primary to watch, and then tons of city council races throughout Durham too. Sometimes city councils don't really get a whole lot of attention. That is not the case in Durham. People are very involved in local politics, have a lot of opinions. And it's going to be really interesting. I mean, some of the city council races have 5, 6, 7 people running for those as well. So some really, fascinating local politics stuff for Durham. And then down in Fayetteville, I was saying Durham's wild because they have 5 people running for mayor. Fayetteville has 10 people running for mayor.
Wow.
Including Mitch Colvin, the current mayor, who had earlier this year, he had actually announced that he wasn't going to run for re-election. A couple months later, he changes his mind, says, never mind. people have reached out to me since I said that I was going to not run and have convinced me that I do need to run. But you've got some sitting city councilmen who are now running against him, some former city councilmen running for mayor down there as well. So that's all really interesting. Then, in Rocky Mount, we've been reporting a ton over the past, month or so, I guess, about the financial problems that Rocky Mount has had. And this audit that just came out that found that they've been overspending their budget by millions of dollars a month. So, do voters come out and punish some of these, incumbents for this revelation that is now leading to, layoffs in the staff in the city there and higher utility bills for city residents? Could be interesting to see what happens to some of those incumbents.
And you mentioned Rocky Mount is the final election. It's not a primary, correct?
Correct. Yeah, Durham and Fayetteville are primaries, but Rocky Mount, this is it for people who live there.
Even more important, yeah, for those that live there and want to exercise their voice. So we've mentioned, Rocky Mount, we mentioned Durham, we mentioned Fayetteville. There are a lot of places in North Carolina that we are not mentioning in this mix for this Tuesday, Election Day in October. Why is that? What are they doing this year?
Well, this is not the only election this year. A couple of cities actually had elections in September, and even more going to have elections in November. So, for instance, whoever wins these primaries for some of these mayor races we've been talking about, they'll go on to the November elections, when we'll also see most cities in the state having elections, places like Cary and Apex, plenty of other Wake County suburbs, in Orange County, Johnston County. They're really all having their elections, and plenty of other counties as well, in November. So those are all gearing up now too. Mail-in voting is starting for some of those. Early voting will be starting soon. So again, folks can go and find some details on our article on our website, WRAL.com, or at the State Board of Elections website, which is ncsbe.gov. Has tons of really good data for people who want to know more about this process and figure out how they can go vote and what's the best way to do it.
Let's do one more kind of process question here, right? You wrote an article talking about all of this, which you can find on the NC Capitol page on WRAL.com. One thing you mentioned towards the end is this notion of odd number voting for municipal election, odd number years versus even number years, right? So odd number years are more traditional. What we're looking at this year with 2025 in places like Durham and Fayetteville and Rocky Mount. Some organizations, though, some states, some towns are transitioning towards even numbered elections. What's kind of the thought process with that for the odd versus even, pros, cons? Is there a big difference?
Yeah, well, the biggest example is the city of Raleigh, which just recently has decided to switch to being in even-numbered years instead of most of the rest of the cities in the state that still do this traditional kind of odd-numbered year format. And historically, the reason why cities or counties, school boards, things like that would have odd-numbered year elections is so that it didn't get lost in just the chaos of the even-numbered years when, every other election, you've got the president on the ballot, the governor on the ballot, and then every time, you've got Congress, state legislature, sometimes U.S. Senate, like we're going to have in 2026. So just with so much other bigger races happening, these, local governments said, look, no one's going to know what we're trying to talk about, what we're trying to do with our campaigns, with our cities, with our counties. And so we need to just move it to these odd numbered years where we can actually, get our message out there. And then also you kind of guarantee that the only people who are showing up to vote are people who really care about these issues and the future of the city or the county. It's not just people who came to vote for president and then, maybe they just fill in a random name in the ballot for the city council race just because they're there and it's on the ballot and that person's name sounds good. So the idea was to kind of keep it more focused that way. But it's also expensive. You've got to pay money to rent out the polling places, to supply them everything. And so some places like Raleigh have decided, we need to cut these costs and just go to the even-numbered years. And also, of course, having it in an even-numbered year gives you much higher voter turnout and voter participation. The flip side of that is just, do you always get, the most informed voters? If they're paying attention to president and Congress and governor, it can be hard to keep everything straight and to really do your homework on the candidates if you've got 30 other races on the ballot.
That an interesting point there. Hopefully, if you're listening to this, you are going to go out there and vote and do all you need to do here on this election day. That's WRAL State Government reporter Will Doran. Will, thank you so much.
Thank you.
I'm Luis Fernandez. Thanks for joining us, and thanks for listening to the WRAL Daily Download, and for making us part of your morning routine. Another great way to get WRAL news is the Morning Briefing newsletter. It's a daily email with Triangle news, events, and headlines to help you get ready for the day. Sign up at WRAL.com/newsletter.